Welcome to the 6th episode of the Head to Head podcast. I'm your host, Cam McKinney. This episode, we will be doing our first ever hockey comparison between two of the biggest stars in the sport of the NHL. Sidney Crosby versus Alex Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin has finally gotten over the hump and won his first Stanley Cup title. I am going to compare both of these athletes and tell you which one I think is better. Let's start off with Sidney Crosby, who is now 30 years old, has been in the league since 2005 when he was drafted. Let's start off with the stats. 411 goals for Sidney Crosby. He has scored over 30 goals seven times in his career. Sidney Crosby has scored over 30 goals. His plus minus, which is really important in the game of hockey, is 165. He is a plus 165 when he is on the ice. That is a big advantage for the Pittsburgh Penguins to have. Let's talk about the winning. Sidney Crosby is a three-time champion. He's won back-to-back. He's basically done everything in the sport of hockey that can be had. He is a 7-time All-Star, a 2-time MVP, 4-time first-team NHLer, and a 3-time second-team NHLer. Sidney Crosby is known as a scorer and a good passer and a pretty decent on defense. He has been proclaimed the savior of the sport. He's one of the most well-known hockey players to Americans who are non-hockey fans. Sid the Kid Crosby. He's relatively good-looking to most people. He is a star hockey player. He's only 30 years old, and I've known about him for about a decade now, or a decade and a half. It's insane how long I've known the name Sidney Crosby. He is one of the biggest names in the sport. And I don't know a lot of hockey players. I don't watch a lot of hockey, but I know Sidney Crosby and I know Sid the Kid Crosby. I know he plays the position of center. I know about the sick passes and the sick goals. But there's something about this rivalry that I find interesting in the fact that the two people are almost polar opposite identities. Sid the Kid Crosby is this good-looking guy who's been good at hockey his entire life. And then let's talk about Alex Ovechkin, who's 32 years old, left winger, 607 goals since coming in the league in 2004. Ovechkin has scored 30 goals 13 times, 9 times over 40 goals, 8 times over 50 goals. His plus minus is a plus of 87, so that's the drastic difference between him and Crosby. He is a 1-time champ, recent champ, 9-time All-Star, 7-time first team, 4-time second, 3-time NHL MVP. Crosby is a 2-time NHL MVP. So in goals, Ovechkin is dominant. But Ovechkin, all I know about Ovechkin is the daredevilness. There was this thing on TV where he rides like these fast cars and he's this daredevil. He's this stranger. He's this guy we don't really know about. He's not like, I don't think he's like popularly likable. I don't think he's a silent guy who scores a ton of goals. He's not very good on defense. He's not the same. He's not the same branding. It's not the same guy. Sid the Kid Crosby is likable. He's a protege. He's been playing hockey his entire life, and then you have this guy who's vastly different. It's like the Bird Magic comparison. Magic was flashy, and Bird was the hard-working guy who put up better stats, but Magic won the rings. Sid the Kid Crosby has 2 more rings than Ovechkin. Ovechkin is finally on the board, so now this becomes a real, almost rivalry. And the rivalry itself is interesting because of the two people themselves, more so than the stats and the winning. Sid the Kid Crosby he doesn't put up the same amount of goals. When it comes to goal scoring, Ovechkin is far superior in just a year ahead of him. 607 goals. 8 times over 50 goals. 9 times over 40. That's insane. That is 15 years of at least 40 goals. That's insane. That is insane that he's done that. 8 times 50 goals, 9 times over 40. That is insane amount of production. But I also think Ovechkin is an interesting case because the idea of the one-way player in sports has become less and less important to people. Let's see, James Harden is known for playing great NBA offense, but not good NBA defense. Alex Ovechkin is known for playing great offensive hockey and scoring goals at a rapid pace, but he's not known for his defensive play. Two-way players have become more and more popular in these sports. Kawhi Leonard is thought of as a top 5 NBA player because he does both. Well, as a guy like Allen Iverson was praised for just being great on offense. We are less and less praising of guys who are one-trick ponies. Then their one trick is scoring, and then the one trick is scoring goals. The one trick is on defense. It seems like you need to be a two-way player to be thought of as one of the greats. But here we have Ovechkin, who's won 3 MVPs, who's just a one-trick pony, and I feel like we don't really know what to do with him. Now he's won the ring, and it seems like everyone's loving on him. He's on Jimmy Fallon. I don't know. I feel weird about it. I remember seeing the thing on TV about Alex Ovechkin driving cars at a wicked fast pace. That's like the only thing I knew about him. Sidney Crosby, he's been injured more, but he's a champion. He's not. I don't know if he's humble, but he's thought of that way. Let's look at the points. Sidney Crosby has 1,116 points in the NHL. Alex Ovechkin has 1,122 points in the NHL. They are vastly similar in stats other than the plus-minus. And maybe the plus-minus shouldn't matter as much because from the little that I do know about hockey, I know that Sidney Crosby has played with far better caliber talent. He's played with Evgeny Malkin his entire career, and they've won rings. He's played with far superior talent, and has won more time. Alex Ovechkin has been known as being on the teams that blow 3-1 leads, 3-2 leads. They've never gotten it done until this year. They are from vastly different organizations. The Pittsburgh Penguins have been winning for a long time with Mario Lemieux, and now it's fallen to Crosby, Malkin. It is a vastly different organization. The Pittsburgh Penguins are known for winning in the modern times, and the Washington Capitals are known for falling far short based on their own shortcomings and not being able to win on the home or the road during the NHL playoffs. But the only thing vastly different between the two is the plus-minus. 165 for Crosby, 87 for Ovechkin. That's far superior on Crosby. But Crosby might be the better. Plus-minus is a team thing, though. It's not just the person themselves. This isn't a one-on-one sport. There are other players playing the game of hockey, fish. When in retrospect, it feels like that's necessary for them to score for their teams to even have a chance to win. Allen Iverson had to be that guy for that Philadelphia team to make the NBA Finals. Ovechkin had to be that guy for the Washington Capitals to be a decent hockey team. It's necessary for these guys to be that way. The case just may be that Crosby is playing with better players, and he is able to pass them the puck, and they are able to get the puck and make a goal out of it. It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be. The plus-minus isn't the end of the story here. These players are vastly similar and vastly different in ways. Clearly, Alex Ovechkin is better at scoring goals than Sidney Crosby. Like I said before, 607 to 411. That's vastly superior. And again, 30 goals 13 times to 30 goals to 7 times. That's almost half the amount of times Ovechkin has scored 30 goals. He is a better goal scorer. Crosby is a better passer. But again, the points favor Alex Ovechkin. The only stat that favors Crosby is the winning and the plus-minus. But that's what sports comes down to most of the time for people, is the winning. I also find it funny that Sidney Crosby's nickname is Sid the Kid, on another note. Calling yourself a kid at your age 30 is hilarious to me, but that's besides the point. Crosby has the stats too. He has the 2-time MVP. He has the 4-time first team, the 3-time second team, the 7-time All-Star. Sidney Crosby is the most well-known player in hockey from my point of view. I think most people know Crosby more so than they know of Ovechkin. They just know Ovechkin from coming up short. But if you really take the time to sit and look at the numbers, some of them are far superior to that of Crosby's. It's just the case. He's just winning the champion. I think it's going to make his case that this is going to become more so of an argument of who's better between Crosby and Ovechkin. But winning does make you ahead of the other person. You had Magic Johnson win 5 rings. You had Larry Bird win 3 rings. Most people would say Magic is better than Bird. Right now, LeBron is being compared to Jordan. 3 rings to 6 rings, even though he hasn't even passed Kobe, who he played with. This is different because these two players are playing at the same time. This is the type of rivalry like Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell. This is the type of rivalry like Bird Magic. This is a rivalry where two guys are playing at their best. This is one-on-one guy. And it's a rivalry where the Capitals had to beat the Penguins to win the Cup this year. And again, the Capitals just lost their coach. So we don't know how long their run is going to last. But Ovechkin has proven that he can win championships. I've heard people say the Capitals should give up on Ovechkin. He's never going to win. And he's finally won the big one. That puts him in the conversation with Crosby more so now than ever. Even though the stats have always been there for him, that one ring makes a huge difference. Dirk Nowitzki is like Ovechkin to me. He played years and years and years in the NBA, and he finally got his ring, and he finally got all the credit he deserved. I feel like Ovechkin is finally getting all the credit that he deserves. What I find interesting about this rivalry is that there have been times where both of these guys haven't been in the picture of the Stanley Cup. This isn't a LeBron thing where each guy has played in 8 Stanley Cup finals. There are times when the league is being dominated by the Blackhawks winning 3 or the LA Kings winning 2. These guys are not part of the picture each and every year, and that's why hockey playoffs are interesting. Both of these guys have gone through periods of not making the Cup, not making the playoffs, and not being real relevant to the sport. This isn't Wilt versus Russell in the way that they're going to see each other in the biggest games each and every season. Both of these guys have had down periods. There have been down periods where Crosby is hurt and people say he's done, he's washed up. There have been periods where they say Ovechkin should be traded from the Capitals. But now both of these guys seem to be at the height of their power. Crosby's coming off winning a few championships. Ovechkin has just won his championship. This could be not the beginning of the rivalry, but the resetting of the rivalry overall, where we could finally be seeing these guys face off in the biggest games. It doesn't seem like the Blackhawks are around anymore, or the LA Kings. There's no predominant team in the NHL that's coming after these two. It seems like this might be the time where this rivalry is the height of its power instead of the decline, even though these guys have been in the league since 2004 and 2005. It's rare where you get to see two guys seemingly in their prime going against each other. We saw Kobe and LeBron start to build and build and build, and then it never came to be. But we're finally seeing these guys face off in these games. Ovechkin has won the ring. He had to beat Crosby to get to the Stanley Cup. Crosby has won 3 rings. It doesn't seem like either of these two are slowing down. Ovechkin keeps scoring goals. Crosby keeps being a two-way player. At some point, we will have a clear answer. With the Kobe-LeBron debate, you never got a clear-cut winner of who's better between Kobe and LeBron because they never got to see each other in the playoffs and on the biggest stage necessary. We've seen these guys on the biggest stage. Ovechkin's won some, Crosby's won some. But in the years to come, it seems like these two could be seeing more of each other. And now that Ovechkin has just won his cup, could this be Ovechkin's time and the end of Crosby's time? Or will Crosby come back and win a few more? It's interesting. This is how rivalries are born. It's not just as easy as Kobe's great and LeBron's great. They have to see each other in the biggest moments for a clear-cut winner to see who the best player is. Ovechkin this year was the clear-cut winner. He won the Stanley Cup. He went through the adversity of never winning in the playoffs, and he's finally won. He's got that monkey off his back, the Steve Young type thing. But could this be his just one? Because we saw with Dirk, like I said, he won his, then he got all the praise. He never even came close to going back to an NBA Finals. Is this the beginning of Ovechkin or the end of Ovechkin? The same thing for Crosby. He's won his 3 rings. Is this the end or the beginning? For hockey fans, you must be hoping that it's the beginning so you can see a real playoff level rivalry between the 2 best players of the last 15 years. It makes the sport more compelling to see these guys play hockey. I don't watch a lot of hockey, but I like watching Crosby play, and I'm a fan of Ovechkin scoring a lot of goals. But you just hope that this is the beginning of something and not the end of something, because you got a glimpse of what it could be between these two, and you just hope that they sustain their level of play, and you get to see the best rivalry possible, because sometimes rivalries end short, right as one's supposed to be beginning. Another thing I find interesting about this rivalry is neither of these 2 guys are competing for the best player in their sport ever, because they're never going to surpass what Wayne Gretzky did with his plus minuses, his goal scoring, and the amount of points he was able to amass in all of those years. These 2 guys are competing for the best player of their time. They don't have a chance like LeBron seemingly does to surpass Jordan, even though I don't think LeBron has that chance, but people think it. Nobody thinks that anyone is on Wayne Gretzky's level in the sport of hockey right now. Ovechkin's not chasing Gretzky. He doesn't have a chance to score the same amount of goals. Crosby doesn't have the chance to score the amount of points and goals and be the passer that Wayne Gretzky was. They're fighting against each other, and that makes it almost more interesting than facing a ghost of someone who's no longer playing. You're chasing someone who's there. When Bird was chasing Magic, there was someone there. The same thing. Magic was chasing Bird. There's someone there. There's someone you're facing right now. You're not facing a ghost. Tiger Woods was facing Jack Nicklaus. A ghost. Someone who wasn't there physically playing golf against. That's hard to do. That's not motivating. When you see the person there you're facing, it's motivating. Crosby's going against Ovechkin, and you know he thinks he's better than him, and you know Ovechkin thinks he's better than Crosby. The 2 are meeting, they're facing, and they can see which one of them is at the top of their games, and it's a real rivalry. None of these 2 are chasing Wayne Gretzky for the best hockey player, but they are chasing the best hockey player of their time, and to me, that's the most fascinating aspect of this rivalry. When it comes to who wins this edition of Head to Head, this is probably one of the harder things. But I'm going to give it to Crosby because I do believe in his being a two-way player. And I also believe in the 3-time champion over the 1-time champion. If it's this close, the rings have to matter. The winning has to matter. Or what are we doing here? Why are we watching the sports if winning doesn't matter? I've seen Crosby be flashy. I've seen him at his best. I think he's the better player between him and Ovechkin. Even though the points don't say so, even though the goals don't say so, the winning does, and being the teammate does. Ovechkin clearly is the best goal scorer, but Crosby is clearly the better player overall. He has made some dazzling passes, also with some great goals. He's played better with others than it seems that Ovechkin has. And just because Ovechkin has won the Stanley Cup this year, it doesn't erase all the times that he failed. Again, right now it's Crosby, but Ovechkin has the chance to surpass Crosby in the near future. If he can equal his amount of rings and maybe bump up his plus minus if that really matters to people, he is on that same level. But Sidney Crosby is clearly the better player of the 2. Sidney Crosby is a 3-time champion, and to me, that matters. Winning matters. Winning matters to me. It doesn't matter to everyone. Ovechkin is a great, great player. He is neck and neck with Crosby. But for this edition of the Head to Head podcast, Sidney Crosby beats Alex Ovechkin as the best player in the NHL at this time. If you enjoyed this edition of the Head to Head podcast, remember to go on iTunes, listen, review, subscribe, and rate. Thanks for listening. I'm Cam McKinney, and this has been the Head to Head podcast.